They told us not to open the room. We didn't. But something got out anyway. Please use discretion when listening. I never believed in ghosts. Even after we moved into that old house on the edge of Chanthara district, a sleepy little town tucked away in the outskirts of eastern Thailand, my skepticism remained firm. The house was old, yes. The floors creaked, the paint was chipped, and vines crawled up the sides like fingers trying to reclaim it. But it was affordable, quiet, and spacious enough for our growing family. My name is Alex. My wife, Molly, was 7 months pregnant with our first child when we moved in. She grew up in Thailand before moving to the States, so when her job offered a temporary relocation package to Bangkok, she was eager to return. We thought the countryside would be good for the baby. Peaceful, safe. I should have listened when her grandmother warned us. On our first day, just before we opened the rusty gate, Molly's mother clasped her hands and whispered something in Thai. I didn't understand a word, but I saw Molly's face stiffen. On the drive in, she explained. She said we should have a monk bless the house before we move in. There's a room that shouldn't be opened. I laughed it off. Big mistake. We moved in that weekend. Most of the house was in decent shape, except for one room at the end of the hall on the second floor. Its door was painted over, nailed shut from the outside. On the frame, someone had scribbled faded red symbols I couldn't recognize. When I asked Molly, she said softly, "That's a protective seal, to keep bad spirits out." She was half joking, I thought. That night, our cat refused to go upstairs. It sat at the bottom of the staircase and hissed at the empty hallway above. I figured it was just adjusting to the new place, but the dreams started almost immediately. At first, it was just the dreams, flickering shapes in the hallway, shadows pooling beneath the door of that sealed room, a woman's voice, faint and far away, calling my name, but never Molly's, always mine. Then the air started to change. Certain corners of the house felt heavier, especially the landing at the top of the stairs. I'd walk past that room and feel like I was dragging my limbs through water, thick, cold, invisible. Sometimes I'd smell jasmine. Other times, something rotten. Molly noticed it too. She started waking up with headaches and night sweats. Once, she screamed in her sleep so violently I thought she was in labor. But when I shook her awake, she only stared at the wall and whispered, "She's watching us." I asked her who she meant. She didn't answer. That morning, I went back upstairs alone and pressed my ear to the sealed door. Nothing. Then, as I turned to walk away, I heard it. 3 soft knocks. From the inside. I didn't tell Molly. Instead, I Googled the symbols. Turns out they weren't just decorative. They were yantra, sacred protective inscriptions used in Thai spiritual traditions. Usually written in red ink, sometimes mixed with herbs, or even animal blood. Their purpose? To trap or repel spirits, and someone had gone to great lengths to seal whatever was inside that room. I tried to rationalize. Maybe it was an old superstition, a leftover from previous tenants. But late one night, as I was brushing my teeth, I heard the baby's crib mobile start playing in the next room. We didn't have batteries in it. Molly was already asleep. I crept into the nursery. The mobile spun slowly, the tiny paper elephants circling above the crib. The tune faded out, and for a second, the room felt too quiet, like the air had been sucked out. Then I heard a whisper. right behind me. Don't open it. I turned. No one was there. But the door to the sealed room was slightly ajar, and I swear to God, we never touched it. The next day, I nailed the door shut again. Not just once. I added a deadbolt, stacked furniture in front of it, covered the handle with salt, like I'd seen in some online forum. I wasn't even sure if that kind of protection worked on Thai spirits. But at that point, I didn't care. I just needed it closed. Molly didn't ask why, because that night she saw something too. She woke me up around 2:30 a.m., her voice shaking. "Alex, there's a woman standing in the hall." I grabbed the flashlight and followed her out of the room. Nothing. But the air was freezing. Molly didn't sleep for the rest of the night. The next day, I called her mother and told her everything. Without hesitation, she said, "You need to see a monk. A real one. There's one in Pak Chong. He won't come to you. You'll have to go to him." I asked if that was really necessary. She just said, "If Molly starts acting different, don't wait." 2 days later, Molly collapsed in the kitchen. I heard a crash and ran in to find her on the floor. Her hands were covered in tiny scratches, like fingernails had raked across her skin. She was murmuring something under her breath. I knelt down and asked if she was okay. She looked up. And it wasn't her eyes, I know how that sounds, but they were darker somehow, focused on something behind me. She smiled slowly, then whispered something in Thai. I didn't understand the words, but I understood the tone. It wasn't my wife speaking. I left the house that afternoon, took Molly with me, drove 2 hours to Pak Chong to find the monk her mother told us about. We waited in silence outside a tiny forest monastery. A barefoot young Buddhist monk in traditional orange robes finally came to greet us. He didn't ask questions, just looked at Molly, then at me. "You opened it, didn't you?" I didn't know how to answer. The monk handed me a string bracelet. Sai Sin, they call it. Blessed cotton thread used for protection. He tied it around my wrist, then Molly's. Then he closed his eyes, chanted something under his breath. He told us not to return to the house for 3 days. We didn't. We stayed in a small roadside inn for 3 nights. No dreams, no whispers, just silence, and the crushing guilt of knowing I'd brought my wife into something she never should have faced. On the 4th morning, the monk called. He told us we could return, but we had to follow specific instructions. Burn incense at each corner of the house, chant a short protection mantra, and, most importantly, do not open the sealed room, no matter what. We drove back just before dusk. The house looked different, darker somehow, almost like it had been holding its breath without us. I lit the incense, moving room to room, while Molly sat silently in the car. I don't know if she was afraid or still not entirely herself. When I passed the staircase, I froze. The salt around the doorknob was gone. Not scattered. Gone. Clean. As if someone had wiped it all away. I did everything as instructed. Then I joined Molly outside. We drove to a nearby temple and offered alms. Rice, water, fruit. A small act of goodwill to whatever forces might still linger. That night, we stayed in a guest house. When I woke up around 3 a.m., I found Molly sitting on the floor, her eyes fixed on nothing. Just staring. I sat beside her. She didn't look at me, just whispered. She's still there, in the room. I asked her who. She said, the one who never left. The one they tried to bury. Then she blinked, as if waking from a trance, and clutched my hand tightly. We left at dawn and returned home. Nothing happened for 2 days. Then came the knock. 3 soft taps. From the inside of that door. Again. This time, I didn't move. I just stared at the door, waiting. No second knock came. No whisper. But I knew what it meant. Whatever we'd done, it hadn't been enough. That night, Molly's condition worsened. She became withdrawn, barely spoke, and avoided mirrors. One evening, I found her sitting cross-legged in the hallway, whispering in Thai. I couldn't understand the words, but the tone. It wasn't hers. I recorded it on my phone and sent it to her mother. She called within minutes. "You need to bring her back to the monk, now." We drove straight to the monastery. The monk was already waiting. When Molly stepped out of the car, he frowned. "She's not alone," he said quietly. He led us into a candlelit Sala, an open prayer hall. There, he placed a bowl of water in front of her and began to chant. For the first few minutes, nothing happened. Then Molly screamed. Not just a cry, but a wail so sharp and primal, it stopped my breath. The candles flickered. The wind outside began to howl, and the monk's voice grew louder, steadier, like it was anchoring the room. Then she collapsed. For a moment, everything went still. Then she opened her eyes and whispered, "She just wanted someone to find her." We stayed at the monastery for 2 more nights. The monk said the spirit was old, abandoned, angry, and bound to that room for decades. He said there had once been a young woman kept hidden in that house, her life erased, her death unacknowledged. We never found records, no news articles, nothing official, but we understood. A week later, we moved out. We left the sealed door untouched. Before we locked the house for the final time, I placed a bowl of jasmine and a white candle in front of that room, just in case. Sometimes, late at night, I still hear the knock in my dreams. 3 soft taps. From behind a door I never dared to open. So, what did you think of Story? Do you believe it was just bad luck, or something that never really left? If you've ever experienced something similar, share it in the comments. I read every single one. And if you don't want to miss more tales from the shadows, especially ghost stories from Thailand, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I'll see you again in the next story.